English reached the Scottish lowlands not long after the first Anglo-Saxon invasions in the 5th century. As it replaced Gaelic as the language of lowland Scotland, it took on a character of its own. The English-speaking Scots took up words that were unknown further south. Contact with the French produced bonny from bon, assiette from assiette for a serving dish, and fâche from the old French fâcher, meaning to annoy. I remember it being in common use in the borders, in don't fash yourself, meaning don't get agitated. The Dutch gave the Scots callant, which became callan, meaning lad, mudsekin, which became muchkin, a quarter pint, and the Dutch kolf, a stick or a club, is the probable origin of the Scottish invention golf. And there were hosts of words from the Gaelic: cairn, ceilidh, claymore, gilly, glen, ingle, meaning a fire in a hearth, strath, a wide valley, loch, swarren, and whisky. And as well as words, the Scots had their own ways of talking.
Yeah, I want to try some of the sausages, please. It's the apricots in it that I'm not sure about that.
Along with the neeps, that is fantastic. Then you had the next course.
And the whisky had nothing to do with it.
In 1761, Thomas Sheridan, Irishman, former actor, and a self-appointed master of elocution and pronunciation, came to Edinburgh. He was on a mission to teach the lowland Scots how to speak English properly. It's hard to believe that there could have been a sense of inferiority among the great and good of Scotland in the Age of Enlightenment. This was one of Europe's intellectual powerhouses, and here at Edinburgh, the Signet Library is filled with the fruits of their learning: the philosopher David Hume, the economist Adam Smith, the engineer James Watt, the architect Robert Adam, the geologist James Hutton, and the historian William Robertson. They were the first among many equals. But there was a sense of inferiority, and it lay in their use of language. Since the Act of Union in 1707, Scotland had been part of a united Britain. A new idea had swept through the whole country, the idea that there was only one proper way to speak English. The idea was partly the result of the spread of the printed standard English. More people than ever were reading, but they weren't reading the local dialects they'd grown up hearing. There'd always been a gap between what was said on the page and what was said on the tongue. But now, in what could be called the Great Print Shift, the printed version started to be regarded as correct. In short, the best spoken English was increasingly supposed to sound like the best written English. But what did written English sound like? And who decided? One simple idea was that words should be spoken with all the written letters sounded, which was fine as long as you could read, but it outlawed those clipped pronunciations that Swift had so hated. It put waistcoat back in favour instead of waistcoat, for example, and put chimney back where many people prefer to say chimley. But it was no help in deciding how to pronounce the A in fast, bath, or last. Fast, bath, or last, long or short. Both had champions, and the argument has lasted from the 18th century to the present day. And what about the many inconsistencies of English spelling? The relationship between sound and spelling in English is a nightmare. Our written system isn't phonetic to the point of being antiphonetic. There are, for instance, at least 7 ways of representing what for most people is the same vowel sound, E.
Free, these, leaf, field, seas, key, machine.
What do we do? Or take the letters O-U-G-H in
cough, tough, through, thorough, bow, thought.
The same 4 letters, 6 different sounds. Dr. Johnson had omitted pronunciation from his dictionary and wrote that trying to fix it was like trying to lash the wind. But that didn't deter others. The Irish actor, Thomas Sheridan, spotted the need for a national elocutionist. He seized the role. Sheridan's first and crucial book was published in 1756, hard on the heels of Dr. Johnson's dictionary. He called it significantly British education. Not English, an education. No messing about with ways of speaking or pronunciation. He went for the key and jugular word. If you wanted to say what you said in the best way, then what you needed was an education. And this book, this man, could provide it, which remarkably he did. Sheridan toured England, lecturing to appreciative middle-class audiences, and then he was invited here to Edinburgh by David Hume, Adam Smith, and other members of the city's leading debating club, the Select Society.
Pronunciation is a sort of proof that a person has kept good company, and on that account is sought after by all who wish to be considered as fashionable people or members of the beau monde.
The task was the last that the past master could grasp, but one can't mark his charm harmfully.
Sheridan hit a nerve. The Scots intellectuals were worried about appearing uneducated.
The task was the last that the past master could grasp, but one can't mark his charm harmfully.
OK, let's hear you all together. Look at the cookbook.
Look at the cookbook, said the cook, as he took the pullets and put them in the nook.
Sheridan's great idea was that if everyone spoke in the same way, they would talk to each other as equals. Of course, it didn't work. The new standard immediately divided people into those who copied it and those who didn't.
Look at the cookbook, said the cook, as he took the pullets
and put them in the nook.
But some Scots were affronted by the very suggestion that their speech was inferior. They needed a standard bearer, and the post was not empty for long. Robert Burns was born in 1759 to a poor tenant farmer and worked as a ploughboy until he was 15. He loved women to excess, he loved Scotch, he loved Scots. He published his first collection in 1786, poems chiefly in the Scottish dialect, and was canny enough to leave out some verses which he'd written in more standard English. It was a shrewd move. The Scots had found someone to make them proud of their own language. He came to Edinburgh and on his first visit stayed here at Ladystairs Close. He was feted, patronised and ruined perhaps as the ploughman poet. He died when he was only 37, but his legacy is vast. 400 songs, some of which are recognised as masterpieces, the Lee Rig, Tam O'Shanter and the Red, Red Rose. 10,000 came to pay their respects at his funeral, and that was only the beginning of a reputation which is kept alive wherever Scots with even a smattering of literature meet to talk of Scotland, drink whisky and toast the ladies and the haggis in Burns's tongue.
Fair fa your honest sonsie face, great chieftain o' the puddin' race. Aboon the ma ye tak your place, paints triper therum. We'll argue word the o' a grace as lang as my erum.